Greetings,
And
everybody.
salutations. I'm kidding.
Hello.
Welcome to our lore talk. Today, we have Lorianne here to talk about Calliope, our resident artificer. A little bit of
Hmm.
backstory on her and where she comes from and why she's like that.
Ew, why are you like that?
Why are you like that? Um, but yeah, I mean that's pretty much the intro.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'll pop in whenever it seems applicable, but it's all about you.
And I'm just
No
here to chit
pressure.
chat.
Yeah.
She's here to vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you remember your birth? I'm kidding.
It all started when I was
It all
born.
started when I was born.
I mean, I guess we can just start at like her early childhood. Um,
Yep.
what was going on there, and kind of what she was up to during the prologue in Act One.
Mm-hmm. So, Callie was orphaned at a pretty young age and or like doesn't have any memory of her past or family. Um, the only home she really knew was the Temple of Tenera, where she lived at the orphanage, which is the church that most people in Formosa, if they were religious, like they followed the Church of Tenera or the Temple of Tenera. And so she was there. She was found on the streets around the age of 3. I guess they probably don't really know her exact age. Oh,
Hmm.
sad. She probably also doesn't really have a birthday.
Her birthday would probably be whenever they found her.
Yeah, like
It's
her
easiest.
found you
mhm.
day.
Gotcha.
Um, yeah.
Shit.
And then so she was there from the age of 3 to around 16ish. And while she was there, she ran around with 2 other kiddos that were a little bit older than her, Anthony and Cass, and they were brother and sister, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Anthony was the eldest. There was a couple other orphans that like
we're in that
ran with
group.
you guys, but
Hmm.
he was definitely the leader.
Yeah. Um, and then they just kind of ran around, got up to nothing great. Um, played games, all the things, right? Um, and then so
Were
Tenera,
children.
another like yeah, right. Um,
Unsupervised.
yeah, I have like a fun fact of like something that when she grew up, like Tenera's festival would have a lot of sweet treats and lights around that time of year. And then like the kids, they'd play cards and would bet with all the little trinkets that they could find or yeah, find,
hmm
steal, whatever it was.
Accumulate in
Accumulate.
whatever means necessary.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-oh.
And then around when she turned 14-ish, give or take, Antony left and wasn't at the temple anymore because he kind of aged out of the temple. You said we'd usually leave around like 16?
They're encouraged to leave around 16 to go find a job, do something else, because they're resources,
Right,
you know?
hmm
right.
Find
Um,
something to do.
right. So he left and she was kind of like alone. And then so she was kind of like a little lost puppy dog because everyone else was older than her. She was kind of alone. Um, and while she was there, also was when she started like learning about making things, tinkering, um, just like figuring out why things worked, how they worked, and just having that curiosity. And then uh, the royal artificer Tobias. We have a little picture of him if you want to
You do.
We
put
do a
it up.
picture. Hmm.
So that's actually Nihilus. Hold on.
So
Hold, please.
Tobias,
This is
the
Tobias.
man that he is.
There we go.
Yeah,
There
there
he
you go.
is.
Um, he saw something in Callie growing up, um, I guess, like, would he frequent the temple? Is that why he
Mm,
saw her?
I thought he
Tobias isn't
like
all
heard of
that.
her or something.
It's more likely that he would have heard about
Okay.
her having talent, and he needed an assistant at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I will say,
His
um,
spouse probably encouraged them to have somebody else in
probably
the
get help.
workshop.
Mm-hmm.
He's like,
You
stop
know,
trying to do everything by yourself.
Yeah. Um. So, Tobias saw something in her, asked her to be his apprentice. She really had nowhere else to go, sorry. There wasn't anything for her at the temple. She was going to have to leave in a couple of years anyway, so just kind of like, there's nothing keeping me here, might as well go, and learn some trade and get a job and be useful.
hmm
Um, so she studied for a good, probably 10 years, under Tobias, um, to become an artificer, and Tobias's partner, Nihilus, they were really her dads. Really took her under their wing and showed her everything. A little bit about Tobias is he is deaf, but he wasn't born deaf. He There was an explosion.
he was deaf as a result of a mining accident.
That's what it was.
Exactly when he was around 9 years old.
Yeah. So he can read lips, which is how he's able to communicate with most people outside of their core little group.
And he was a part of Renata's original like adventuring
Story.
group, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would say story.
If there was a campaign, he would have been a part of the group.
Yeah. Prequel, I guess.
The prequel campaign. The prequel campaign.
Prequel of the prequel. Yes.
So Callie does speak sign language to communicate with him. They so she speaks sign language to him. Nihilus is unfortunately no longer with us. He passed away
Do you want me to
5 years
switch
ago
to
now
him?
in
Yeah.
game.
In game, about 5 years.
I should have
Around the
done
time
like
of
a in loving
rip.
memory or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see some likeness in their features to different people. You might be able to guess
Too
who
soon.
their face claims are. But Nihilus, he passed away around the time of the Cataclysm, right?
It would be a little bit before that, but
Right.
yes.
It was
Around
maybe
the same.
5 seconds before that.
I'll get more into the longer story of it, but in general, there was a monster that was abducting people at this time that I had the party tasked with trying to find. But part of the thing about this particular monster was that when it took someone, it effectively made everyone forget about them existing. But the way it did this was through a song. And so Tobias, because he's deaf, could not hear this song. So he knew immediately and no one would believe him.
Tears. So sad.
Ugh. Okay.
It's fine.
Amelia has many regrets. Trust.
This is I'm curious as to, like, I guess how Callie would have responded to all of that.
Mhm. I mean, it's up to you.
No,
What do you
yeah, like,
You're like, I'm curious, but I also get to decide that.
Whatever you decide
Right.
it becomes canon. So
Yeah.
right. Because I guess she would have heard the song.
Was she closer to Nihilus or Tobias?
Definitely Tobias.
Okay.
But I'm sure her and Nihilus had a relationship of, like, I don't know, I could see them, like, not making fun of Tobias, but I feel like Tobias is a very quirky man.
Yes.
and he
And
can be described as a bit strange.
right.
I mean,
and so
both
I feel
of them
like
can be
But it's
described
in a
as that,
different
which
way.
is why they're a power couple.
but in different ways. And I feel like her and Nihilus would have had that, like, relationship where obviously because Tobias can't hear them, they would like giggle and make fun of, not make fun of, but like
things he does. I would say she definitely, you could decide who she was closest with, but Nihilus is very much an idea man. He would have an idea and it would seem impossible, and many people would say that doesn't even make sense. How are you even going to make that work? And
that also
Tobias
sounds highly dangerous and improbable.
Exactly. And Tobias is like hearing it, he's listening, hearing it like or like whatever you want to say, like listening.
He's nodding. He's nodding.
Nodding. He's like, wait a minute, he's cooking, and then he'll try and make it happen. But the thing is, like, Nihilus is very much the scientist. He's very much the I have an idea, we do this, and then Tobias is more the engineer. He's the logistics.
Yeah.
I'm so sad.
I know.
I
wish, like,
so incredibly sad.
Me playing character could have met him. Because
Yeah.
Well, if we die, you might be able to.
I mean, hope that doesn't happen. But she will
I
die
don't know
eventually,
if
right?
Amelia could go
We
through
should die
dying
eventually.
twice.
Yeah.
That'd be way too much. She'd be like, I'm done. I'm cooked. Actually, I'm very much okay.
Yep. So after Nihilus passed away and the cataclysm happened, Tobias also took in 2 more apprentices who were also orphans.
So that was a little bit because of Amelia with like the previous group had found basically 2 orphaned individuals in the north when they went back up there, and it had basically been like ransacked.
There was a series of events that occurred that wasn't directly the fault of the party, but it was definitely one of those situations where, like, if you don't go back by a certain period of time, this will happen. And it resulted in the death of another NPC, and she was actually in the process of rescuing these kids as much as she could, but she died in that process, and so they took it upon themselves to save these kids.
Yeah. So basically, Amelia had the idea of, hey, you should go help Tobias, because she also started to feel very personally guilty for what had happened to Nihilus. So she was kind of like, I don't want him to feel like isolated. So these 2 children really need guidance, and I think Tobias needs to be that guidance giver, I guess. So I am curious what that relationship between Callie and those 2 was like.
Yeah. I think not that she took on like a mothering role, because essentially, I mean, she would have been like well into adulthood by the time she like met them. She probably would have been 20, 21. Ish, maybe.
And they were like
late teens.
How old were they?
It was probably like 18, 19.
They're around 7 and 9.
7 and 9.
The youngest was mute, and the oldest, she generally spoke for him.
They're a lot more playful now, trust.
Yeah, they're fun people now.
So I think...
Didn't Tobias at one point also say that they reminded... Like, one of them reminded him of Nihilus? I think it was the girl.
Yes, she is very creative. Has a lot of ideas.
Let her cook.
She's cooking.
I think... I think probably...
She's invented a tank. You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right.
Whoa.
What is with all of Tobias's, like, proteges making weapons of mass destruction? Okay, we won't bring it up. I'm sorry.
No.
We'll get to that.
It was one
It
time.
was
We'll get to
one
it. We'll get to
time.
it. We'll have to bring that up. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Backstory on that, real quick.
Mhm.
Callie saw another NPC with a gun. I don't know if like she wouldn't know that word gun.
Yeah.
But was like, oh, looks like a cool weapon. I wonder how that works. Created one. Sarah was going through a mental breakdown, and in the midst of her mental breakdown, gave Sarah the gun to shoot because Sarah, warrior, royal guard, right? Like
She was like,
arrows,
this
so-
might help
trying
her.
to help, right?
Yeah.
Sarah shoots the gun and just like falls to her knees and is just like
Breaking
broken.
down. Yeah.
Like in
Triggered,
hysterics.
literally.
And Callie has not touched the gun since then.
no.
It is in pieces.
She took it
Oh
apart.
my gosh.
It
Not
cannot
her
be
being
put back
triggered,
together
literally.
by anyone but her. So yeah. Anyway, I think with the two little kids, they definitely became part of the family. And I think she took not a mothering role, but like a big sister kind of caretaker role. She's probably definitely the one that makes sure that they're fed and clean. Like I think Tobias, and I guess Kai, you can speak more on this, but I don't know if Tobias has like the headspace or wherewithal to fully be like, oh, have you had dinner tonight? Oh, what am I gonna make for dinner tonight? Am I gonna cook? Am I gonna like what are we gonna do? Like, or it's like I feel like his brain is constantly going that like he probably forgets to eat.
He forgets sometimes to take care of himself, but then also
Right.
it's another factor to remember that he and Nihilus never had to take care of a baby. It was always like, well, Callie was a teenager already. And she already knew how to do those things.
Right.
So they're like, okay, well, we'll just make sure you're emotionally all right. Pat
Yeah.
on your head.
Mm-hmm.
So then it was like, okay, well, he might just expect that would be more of the same.
Mm-hmm.
But then also take into account that by the time he was 9, he was working in the mines.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
So he's like, okay, yeah, that's normal behavior.
Yeah.
So
It seems fine to me.
I feel like also I'm sure like Callie being at the temple, I'm sure they had chores and rotated responsibilities. So she's like,
Oh, for sure.
had kitchen work, like has been worked in the kitchen before, and
They put those kids to work.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she's definitely like big sister.
She does give big
Loves
sister
them.
vibes for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think also to her, like, she definitely has more of like the caretaker role in the group, where it's more like the, have y'all drank enough water? Have you?
Did you eat
Okay,
today?
so I understand that we need to go fight, but you haven't rested in a long time, and you have spell slots. You know, like you need to make sure that you're doing that correctly.
Right.
He did in fact construct cloaks to keep everybody warm in the mountain pass.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that did
was on
happen. That
stream.
is on stream. Yep. Very much
Yep.
the caretaker vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So we
Very
appreciate.
nice.
Her
I wouldn't
for that.
say I wouldn't say mom,
No.
but
No,
definitely
but caretaker.
caretaker.
Yeah.
Because she's
I
also
think she
very
also after like Nihilus passed, she very much was like, I mean, do you think that she was more like putting aside her grief
100%.
to make sure that she helped Tobias first, or
She probably still hasn't fully processed it.
okay, wow, oof, okay,
Like,
so that'll make a comeback.
'Cause if you remember, Tobias was in a really bad place, and that was part of the reason why you were like thinking to bring those kids to him, to give him like
purpose.
Not necessarily like he still loves his inventions, he loves his work, but I think that for a minute there he wasn't doing much of anything.
Well, and
like
I
not
think
a
it's
task,
also
because like children
but I
aren't a
do-
task, but
I do think it was also like a little bit of the like, hey, don't isolate yourself, like have um, have like your own community and like you still have family, even though you're currently working through this grief, which is fair, right?
Right.
But I think that he was definitely he started to become more of himself and like open up and want to work when he recognized that like family is the family that you choose, not
Right.
necessarily like the one that like comes
Which,
from a marriage or something like
right.
that.
Which I could
Yeah.
definitely see be his driving force behind pushing Callie out into the world.
Yes.
Of like, yes, we are your family. However, it is now time for you to go find yours. Um, so after the 10 years or so that she was with Tobias, and taking care of all that, um, she had probably met some of the members of the party
Yeah.
in not in passing, but like
They
they came
probably
to pick
knew
up,
of each other.
right, or like they would come to pick up something from Tobias and she would be in the background of the shop, but not really like communicating with
I
them.
think even like she might have been like the person to like pass a message on like hey Tobias is like done with something and
Mm-hmm.
basically they're like okay it's like a messenger, you know,
Right.
like it's kind of like in passing. um
Right. I mean,
because
she did all of the
also
grunt work, right? Like deliveries, all sorts of things. Also, it was much easier for her to communicate with the rest of the world than him. So, and she probably did a lot of that when he was grieving.
right,
Um, just like keep things going.
for
Oh,
sure.
the sweet man.
He's so sweet. We love Tobias. In this house, we will protect Tobias with our whole fucking
Yes.
just
But that's
Everyone
kind
in
of
existence.
how
the
we ended up with Callie a part of the group.
yes.
She was present in the background of the events of Act One. She did, in fact, feel the effects of the cataclysm. Everyone did.
Mm-hmm.
Um, however, as we said, Tobias was trying to push her out to go and try and find her own way.
Mm-hmm.
And before this, I remember that the party did encourage Tobias to reach out to Ren because Ren was one of his close friends,
Mm-hmm.
and he was isolating himself. There's like, hey, why don't you reach out to your friend? She's literally right here. You're living in the same house, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So
You literally share space. What the hell?
Yeah, house.
you mean palace with multiple levels?
Right.
Yeah.
That's like crazy.
And rooms
big,
and
yeah.
doorways. Yeah.
I mean, she's here.
We're in the same vicinity, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we
Yeah.
are in the same geolocation. Why are we not speaking?
Don't talk to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that did prompt this line of how we got here, where he's like, hey, my apprentice, I really recommend, because at the time, beginning of Act 2, the Queen was looking for a group to, I'm sorry, the beginning of Act 1, the Queen was looking for a group to go and be her eyes and ears, be her hands and feet. She can't physically go. And so we're assembling this group. Tobias puts forward Callie as an option. And that's how she ended up with the current group right now.
Right. And I think it's also um, with Act 1 specifically, Tobias was very like it's really interesting to see who they recommend and like why, because I think um Tobias's reason for like I guess nominating Callie while is it Isadora?
Isadora.
Yeah, Isadora and her reasoning for like presenting having Sarah, right? Because I think also we didn't really talk about it in Sarah's, and we'll probably go more in depth with like Amelia's backstory. But like Amelia also was very much like, okay, this isn't gonna be like my family, quote unquote, we barely even have to be friends. We just have to travel together, and I have to make sure that like none of these people die, right?
We are
Yeah.
coworkers at
Right.
best.
We are
Yeah.
coworkers, and that's going to be that.
Hmm.
And so it's been really interesting that over this time where these things have been happening, um, the group has become like more intertwined. Where it's like, okay, I literally cannot see me like going off on my own. Like
Right,
I
right,
can't
right.
do that. Yeah. Um, so it's a really interesting conversation to kind of figure out the dynamics of the group and how they all have come to depend on one another and need one another.
Hmm.
Um, because, like, I know that in Sarah's um, episode, we talked about her being the heart, but I think, like, every single character brings something to the table that's, like, necessary in the group.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
It
agree.
definitely sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes feels as though Callie is suddenly the adult in the room. Like everyone else is being silly and weird, but she's like, you know what? I got this. And she'll step up and be the
Everybody's
adult.
like regressing into being teenagers, and Kelly's like, "Hey, can y'all like shut up? Because this is a very serious thing."
I think it would
Like,
also make sense that she was kind of forced to grow up too fast.
right? Mm-hmm.
Um,
I was
So
thinking that
like,
too
in
because
in
she
in
took on
what
the
ways
caretaker
do
role
you
for those
think?
kids.
Like, in
So
what ways? Because you said that the kids came in when she was like 20 or 21. So
mhm.
like prior to that, why? Like, what do you think potentially led her to like kind of almost take on that like caretaker role with Nihilus and Tobias?
Well, I think the big thing is him being in such a bad spot with Nihilus being gone and like him going through his own grief. But also, I think she just kind of naturally wants, I mean, like people pleaser, but also just wants everyone to be happy and like find what they like, find their joy in life. And I think you can kind of see that with her interactions with Louis,
Mm-hmm.
like giving him the choice. Like, not even if he were to potentially like not choose us in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
but like he at least had the choice.
mhm.
Whereas he didn't before. And so like, and also like her telling him like, you don't like, you can live a different life. You don't have to live this life in fear. You don't have to like, you have a choice. You are your own person. It might feel like you're trapped right now, but like, how can we get you out of it?
Mm-hmm.
And so just like, again, not necessarily a people pleaser, but I definitely could see that she has people pleasing tendencies. Um,
That's fair.
but I think she just, and maybe that again goes to the fact that she was alone and didn't have people to take care of her.
Mm-hmm.
So she wants to make sure that other people are taken care of.
So her relationship with Antony from
Mm-hmm.
childhood, after he aged out, did they have any sort of communication before he passed
He
away?
passed. I don't know. Um,
More likely than not, he came back.
mm-hmm.
Um, so a little thing about Anthony, once he left, he decided that he wanted to be an adventurer. He wanted to be famous and a hero. He wanted to redeem his name. We'll go back into that when we talk about the history of Cass and Anthony. But in general, he would have come back to try and get like some of his guys, not necessarily men, but like some of his guys to go with him on this like adventure. He probably wouldn't have asked Callie to because she was too young, but he did return for that
Mm-hmm.
purpose. You know.
I
Well,
could
I
also see
also
her.
I,
Sorry, go ahead.
no. Basically, I do imagine, because Antony is like he definitely has that like bravado to him,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that there is um, it's almost like Peter Pan-esque, where he's like, "Here's my merry band of like peace," right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "But don't get it twisted. I am in fact the leader of the group."
Mhm.
And so I feel like he
Real.
also would have had like these moments of potentially like coming back and telling Callie like, "Hey, I did this really
Stories of
cool thing," and like da 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 da. Were some of them wildly exaggerated, of course, but
Probably.
I think Callie also did we. I think we talked about like that was one of her first like I guess like childhood crushes. Was that accurate or not really?
Um, I feel like she probably idolized him, but maybe
Okay,
not in the
yeah.
way of like
Oh my god, he's so
that kind.
cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it was probably more of like I want to be like that, but also not. Like
Yeah, it's probably
he's
Like
so
I
cool.
could see
in a
it
group
like
of
the
kids, he
man
was
it'd
the
be so
oldest
cool if
boy.
I like held myself like that and felt like I
Hmm.
deserved to take up space in a room.
Right,
They
right, right.
felt all the kids felt Anthony was so cool. Like he
Hmm.
always had the right answer, even when he didn't know what he was talking about.
Hmm.
He was like the leader. He was a natural born leader, and I
Hmm.
think that was a big part of it.
Hmm.
I mean, and she probably would have saw the last interaction that Anthony and Cass had before he left in his final journey.
Hmm.
Um, I think we did say that Callie wasn't particularly very close with Anthony's younger sister, Cassandra, even though
Hmm.
they were closer in age. They were just very different people.
Hmm.
Um, but that was a big part of it because for a big part of their life, that was basically like she was his number two
Right.
in a lot of ways. So you can definitely see that having influence too.
I feel like have you guys seen the movie Hook?
Yes.
Yes.
Speaking of like Peter Pan-esque, I
Right.
almost feel like he was more of like the lead lost boy in Hook,
Yeah.
That's probably, yeah.
like like
Hmm.
than
I can see them
actual
calling
Peter
themselves the
Pan.
Lost Boys.
Right.
Yeah.
He was
Hmm.
very much trying to grow up. Sometimes a little bit too fast. Like, hold on, homie. Hold
Hmm.
on.
Chill. I need you to chill. You're
And I
like
feel like
12.
she was just kind of like running around with them, not necessarily like
Hmm.
really partaking in things, but like
No,
would
but like
follow along just to see all the cool stuff they were doing.
right. I think she would have been fascinated by him, right?
Mhm.
Of just like
Mhm.
the man he
Mhm.
just holds himself with so much confidence and
Right.
like
Hmm.
those kind of people generally draw in others that are a little bit like more quiet, a little bit more reserved, whatever,
Mhm.
and like draw out of them like the man. Like I want to walk around with that much confidence. I just don't know
Mhm.
if I have something right now in which
Hmm.
I can feel that level of confidence.
And I
Right.
think she's still learning that. Like she still
Right.
doesn't feel like she deserves to take up space like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Um
Which I think has
she's
been really interesting, even with the current party,
mhm.
to kind of see her interactions with like when people are like, okay, Callie, you get to decide. Like, what do we do, right? And she's like,
Mhm.
we can,
Mhm.
um, and so like even with Louis, like
Mhm.
majority of the group was like, okay, you kind of get to make the shots on this. Like, you
Mhm.
call it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The group and your NPCs on your side didn't trust him, and it
Mhm.
Right.
became like, okay, well, it's up
Mhm.
to you, I guess. What do we want
Mhm.
to do here?
Mhm.
I do kind
Yeah.
of want to unpack a little bit more just because I think it would help with like people understanding the current campaign,
Mhm.
with Louis being such a he's a large player on the board right now, I would
Mhm.
say. Especially since we're like, what if you just like went and experienced the world? Like you can come with us, basically, right? And like, what doors is
Mhm.
that gonna open?
Mhm.
So like, what do you think it was for Callie to like see everybody be so distrustful off the
Mhm.
jump, but then
Mhm.
what do you think like motivated her to be like, okay, wait, like,
What if we actually did
what if we
trust him?
slowed down a second?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think that motivation came from?
I think, I mean, from their first interaction, for those, like, just because this happened prior in the campaign. So they met at the ball that they went to in Atlas. No one had any idea who he was. He was just another guest at the ball and just like walked up to her and asked her to dance. And I could see her almost like see him have the same kind of swagger as
Mhm.
Antony
Mhm.
in the sense of like, I'm just gonna walk over and ask this girl to dance.
Mhm.
Like, so I think she kind of not connected with that, but was like, oh, okay. But then I think from the beginning, like in that moment, he seemed genuine and not untrustworthy.
Mhm.
And I mean, first impressions
Yeah.
are a huge deal. I think she saw something in him that, like, I don't know, even though, like, yes, he was pretending to, or not pretending, but like wasn't forthcoming with who he was
Right.
in that moment,
Mhm.
I think we kind of saw a little glimpse of who Louis could really be
Mhm.
before we learned all of the other things.
Right. Like
Um,
I do feel like at the ball when he asked her to dance, it was interesting during the dance to almost see the simplicity of there is a man who is asking a woman to dance and that's all
mhm,
this is, even if
mhm.
that's just for like 30 seconds to a minute, right?
Right, right.
And like the simplicity of that. Um,
Mhm,
and I do remember that during that like session, Callie was still like, I have questions, right? Like, like she was like, hold on.
Why are you asking me to dance?
Yeah, she's
What are
like,
the motives here?
she was like,
And he was like,
because
I'm
like,
literally just asking you to dance.
yeah, it's not that deep, and you're like,
Girl,
but it is,
yes
because
or
this
no?
is weird, and you don't know me, and I don't know you, so like, what the fuck?
Right.
Also, you don't seem to be from here. And so, and he's like, well, yeah, neither do you, and you're like, touche, right?
Hmm.
But I think it's like it was interesting to see like that simplicity because nobody else in the group got that glimpse
Hmm.
of Louis, right?
Hmm.
Of um like just dancing, talking for a little bit, and then she's like, "Where are you from? What are you doing?"
Right. And
Right?
then as
Like,
soon as she
wait,
learned
who?
that
Wait.
information, she went
Mm-hmm.
back and told everyone what happened. So, like, no one else got to talk to him before he became Louis,
Right. Yeah, that's true.
quote unquote. Like,
Yeah.
Quote unquote.
But I think it's also like for the rest of the group, like you got to have this interaction like that was almost like pure, right? Like it's
mhm.
just like a simple
Right.
interaction. Um, but then also on top of that, it's like we have um, almost this moment of like the rest of the group decides to take Callie's word from then on because it's like you seem to have more of an understanding than we do, even
Hmm.
if it's like you had a just a little bit of more of a glimpse than we
Hmm.
did, right? Because
Well,
we're
and what's
like,
interesting is even Marion
mm-hmm,
has been okay with kind of Callie making the shots on
that's
Louis when
true.
that's her brother, who she definitely doesn't trust and has every reason not to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Marianne has a very limited view of who Louis even is.
But still.
As far as she's concerned, this dude just fucking hates her, and she's not really sure what she did to make him hate her so much,
Hmm.
and so she's on defense. So
Hmm.
you can't
Right.
really make clear decisions as soon as you're just on defense.
Yeah, yeah. That's fair.
But she has the wherewithal to be able to recognize that,
Hmm.
I'm gonna add Louis to the slideshow so that
so we
everybody
can know
knows
who
who
we're
we're
talking
actually
about. Sorry,
talking
guys.
about. Yeah. Um, yeah, but I
There's
think
Louis.
like Louis, something that I deeply love about our campaign is that like yes the PCs have very complex things and understandings, um, but like it feels like we also like build these NPCs to have like more layers, because I think like Mars comes in and she's like, okay, I've been sitting okay, because also she's been sitting on this specific storyline for probably like 2 years. um and so now that like we're doing it right, I think she's also like, because we did it with Magnus too, where it was like, okay, so there's gonna be this character, you'll probably interact with them, but like it doesn't have to get that deep. And then it's like we take it and we're like, but also he has these like
now
complexities.
You're gonna travel with us.
Yeah, you're gonna travel with us now. And she's like, okay,
okay, fuck. Now I gotta make
go a lot deeper than what I had. Gotcha. Yeah. So I feel like we kind of, I think that's
have
that's
the
one of
tendency to just collect lost puppy dogs.
We really do be collecting some.
You guys like to find the most traumatized individuals and say, you know what? You're part of us now.
I can fix them. Yeah. I'm kidding. But that is what's, I think, really interesting even about like Louis, is that he's not just like one thing. And so I'm interested in some of the interactions that like Callie and Louis are going to have, because of already having more kind of like little windows than everybody else, right?
Yeah.
Now, whether that turns out to be like romantic or just like friendship or like some sort of connection in whatever way the story goes, right? I think it's going to be interesting to see that play out. Though I do have a firm belief that Sarah is going to, in fact, butt herself into this. So get ready for that. Because I can see that coming. I really can see that coming.
I mean, Callie kind of deserves it a little bit, because she has kind of instigated some things between Sarah and Cal.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, basically everybody...
Like with the drunk letter that she kind of helped deliver to him.
Actually, one of the most ironic things about this group right now is that somebody has always instigated some sort of like romantic connection, except for the one person who does not understand romantic relationships well, and that is Ophame and Meryl. Ophame and Meryl have gotten no like get in there, champ, like this sort of thing. Literally everybody was like, we're just gonna let them do their thing out.
Yeah.
Like, y'all,
no one went to deal with that. You're like,
but
what?
I think it's because like also for Ophame, it's like you're learning romantic relationships literally with every passing day. So I can't like tease you about like anything because that's so fucked up. Like you were raised in a cult. Like that's fucking mean.
I cannot wait to do Ophame's story.
I'm so
Ophame's story is so great, and I am very excited to talk about some of
her
my
death cult.
I just remember having like when we were first putting the group together, and then
early interactions.
No, like even just like before we even had session 1, she like dropped the backstory, and I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. And it was really fun. But no,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't know if you had like more insight into like Callie, because you talked about Callie wanting to give Louis more choice and autonomy. What do you think specifically about the character of Louis made Callie become almost like fervent in trying to make sure that he like got his own autonomy? Because like obviously it's like a little piece of it is that he's a person who should be able to make their own decisions, but like what do you think made Callie like one of his biggest defenders among the group?
Louis Defense Squad captain.
Yeah. Louis Defense, straight up. Yeah.
Team of one.
Team of one.
Yikes.
I I don't know.
Amelia
I
isn't
think...
necessarily on the opposing team. She's just not on
Yeah.
the team.
Right. You're
Okay.
just neutrality right now.
She's switching it.
I don't know. Because it's not like she's ever
He's hot.
experienced...
I'm kidding. I'm
It's 'cause
kidding.
Is that why? You think you can fix him?
Y'all.
I'm kidding.
I don't think it's like... It's not that she's experienced someone not be themselves. Or, like, not have a choice. I mean, I guess in a sense, Nihilus didn't have a choice to go to the monster. So she watched, like...
Yeah.
Tobias grieve through that process and like him being the only one, and no one fought, like no one helped him. Like,
so do you also
or you
think
did,
that
but
potentially part of it is that it's almost because nobody was on his side that she felt more inclined to
probably,
because like realistically within this space, right?
but she probably also feels guilty because she didn't fight for him either.
Yeah.
Even though it was out of her control.
Right.
But like now on the other side, knowing that Tobias was right, and we all turned a blind eye because we were like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I could see her having guilt for that, and yeah.
I could definitely see her almost getting passionate, maybe like subconsciously, about providing Louis with the chance to go and be in the world because she was given that opportunity, right? Like Tobias was like, you need to go and experience the world through the lens that only you can. And Louis's entire life had been determined for him or influenced for him, right? To where he was like basically brainwashed.
To touch on is Callie's relationships within the group, like how those friendships are blossoming. And I also wanted to touch on the really emotional scene we unfortunately had off stream where Callie did get to speak with Tobias.
It's not unfortunate because we were blubbering like actual babies during that.
Was crying, really
that was the
crying.
worst. I haven't cried that hard.
I did want to touch on that though.
Dang, like that was wild. But yes, please tell us about that interaction.
What I was gonna say really quick about Louis and Callie also is like I feel like Callie's eyes have been opened to the world. And she's like, okay, it's not as bad as everyone said, or not as bad as she thought it was going to be. Like, she's actually having the time of her life, traveling with this group of people.
She's like, the world isn't on fire all the time.
Right.
Sometimes
so I think
it can
she's
be
like,
fun.
You need to go enjoy it too, whether it's with us or on your own. Like, you need to experience life other than under your mother's thumb. Anyway, friendships in the group. I feel like Callie's, closest with Amelia. I feel like you and I constantly, like, will look at each other or, like, we're like, oh my god, here we go again. Like, I feel like we kind of have that connection, especially about Sarah.
Yeah.
Love ya.
Yeah.
So, for those that don't know, I don't really know if she cares that I share this, but
Probably
in
not.
real life, Morgan and I are sisters. And so it's also kind of been funny to watch Callie interact with Sarah in that like sisterly banter way of Callie giving Sarah shit for things, especially Cal.
Yeah.
Or like getting drunk or just like being stupid. So I think that's been fun. I think she's still trying to like not find her footing with Ofame, but like how to connect with her more. And Ofame's also just like gone through some pretty traumatic things in the last little bit. So
I think it's also interesting, specifically with like Callie and Ofame. They're very much opposites, right? Like where Callie was like she's experienced hard shit. We're not gonna dismiss that, but she lived a pretty sheltered life.
Yes.
Right. Like it was really like controlled how much of things were experienced, right? Like even when like the orphanage, like when she was at the orphanage, um,
It
even
wasn't
during
ideal,
that
but
time,
she was
she
safe.
had people who
No.
protected her and made sure that she was good, loved her well, like all of that, right? And then it was moving into like being with Nihilus and Tobias, who probably loved her very freely and wanted her to have great things, right? And
And I don't
so
it's necessarily like forced to stay
No.
probably not.
in the shop or whatever, but I think like
But you know what I could totally picture
he
happening though is
Mhm.
like she was never forced to stay, but then like essentially one day I could totally see Nihilus being like, you know, you're my kid, right? Like you're my kid. And then like
not
essentially
forced to stay, but for the first time didn't want to leave.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
I
so
think
she
Nihilus would have
felt
been very straightforward about the fact that like you're straight up my daughter. Like
mhm.
don't get it twisted. If anybody asks, I am in fact your dad. Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and then Tobias was like, "Oh, I thought that was a given."
Like
Do
I
we
could
need to talk
totally
about that?
see I could totally see
Conversation.
her all three of them like just falling into like multiple day long like no one has talked in 3 days. But we are all in the house or in the shop or whatever you want to call
Right.
it, doing our own things, but so like focused that like the outside world doesn't exist for days.
Yeah.
And so I could definitely see them all kind of like falling into those moments like they're together but not really.
It's the comfortable silence.
Right. So
Until somebody's like, "I did it!" And then it's like, "Oh shit. Okay. Okay. It's been 48 hours since somebody has uttered a word in here. Holy crap."
Well, Nihilus is top of the list of people who would wake everyone in the house up to go show the invention that he finished, and then you find out that it just blows up. And he's like, okay, never mind, go back to bed. I'll figure it out.
It's like 3 a.m. You're like, son of a bitch.
yeah.
No, but like I do think that between like Callie and Ofame, like Callie lived a relatively like sheltered, well loved, knew that she was protected type life, while Ophame's was the opposite. It was very cutthroat. It was very you had to earn
Survival of the
living
fittest.
every day, right? And kind of like being exposed to a lot of the world, but only told that the world is XYZ way. So, like, Ofame, even though it's been like 4 years since she's been like really figuring stuff out, right? Even with that, how she like describes things and stuff like that, I think sometimes to Callie is like, wait, what? Like, you know,
yes,
because
but
she's
also
not,
Callie
she's not
has
used
the
to
wherewithal, right? And like, but also Callie has the wherewithal to not make fun of her,
right?
Or like if it was Sarah saying those things,
She'd be like, you're
or someone, she'd be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Right.
But with Ofame, she knows that like not that she doesn't know any better, but like that's how she sees and interacts with the world. And so she's like, no, yeah, you're right. Like, yes, that is that way.
Yep.
And I feel like the whole party kind of acknowledges that like,
yeah,
like, well, you'll talk about it when it's her story.
Yeah.
And then,
but I know that I can speak for like, as far as like Amelia is concerned, I think for a couple reasons her relationship with Ofame is a little bit more developed because one, she has a very good relationship with Tobias, and has always had like a deep love and like care for him, which is why like, you know, she was like, hey, we're gonna bring these kids in, you gotta help them, you know, whatever. And I think when she sees Callie, she sees somebody that she like vehemently wants to protect.
right.
And she wants her to like come into her own, and like I think that Amelia also has a very deep like respect for Callie, just because she likes that Callie is rational, because she has a lot of people in her life that are not necessarily like that.
What?
And
What do you
she
mean?
she does believe that every group needs to have a couple people who are like, you know what, fuck it, right? Like Cal and like Sarah, right? Um,
We can't have everyone be a loose cannon.
right. We can't have a whole bunch of loose cannons, but we also can't have people who sit there analyzing it for an hour and a half, right? Um, so I think that's what's like really awesome about the dynamic, because like you can even see it in some of our previous VODs, right? Like previous sessions, like even when we were like in Louis' room and we were like, okay, so we could do XYZ, we could do this, da 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 da. And then it was like basically Sarah was like, well, we need to do something because we don't have enough time to like sit here and talk about it. So are we going or are we staying, right? And so I think that's what makes the group really dynamic, is that not everybody is thinking the same way. And so I think
it's well
Amelia,
balanced.
yeah, like Amelia really likes the rationality of Callie, because the only other person in her life that she is close to, let me specify, who is rational is Magnus.
Right.
But Magnus is he's not like, don't go on adventures because I assume that you're gonna have them, right? But also at the same time, he's still very much like, whenever you want to stop adventuring, that'd be really
It'd
sick.
be really cool.
That'd
Right.
be really cool. But
Because it's so like not that he's indecisive, but like is so rational and so thoughtful.
right, he's a
And thinks
feminist
about
icon.
every
He's a
Okay.
and
feminist
thinks
icon.
about
Well,
every
because he's
scenario.
very much like, I'm not going to suppress you, right?
No.
But
Right.
also at the same time, like if he could have it his way, be really cool, but she wouldn't be Amelia if she stopped, right? So
Right.
I think he knows that, but that's why I think she really loves having Callie, because she wants the rationality, but she also doesn't want someone to tell her to stop, like, pursuing what she is
Right.
doing and what she finds like passion in, right?
Mhm,
Because she
mhm.
knows that Callie's never gonna look at her and be like, we should really stop adventuring, guys. Like we should call it and go home, you know, like
Right,
a sort
right.
of thing. So it's interesting for sure.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. Um Other relationships, I feel like as far as NPCs are concerned, I feel like her and Marion have had a couple moments where
Yeah,
she's
I
like,
would say out of the group, Callie has gotten closest as far as NPCs to Marion,
mhm,
which I think is really interesting.
mhm.
Stop it. My cat's trying to eat my mic. Yeah,
Geralt
but
is hungry.
he's not hungry. He just wants attention, which is
Yeah,
okay.
good for him.
But no, I did, because I don't know. I was really interested to see how the party would react to Marion in general, and because a lot of the interactions you guys we were able to get on stream, you guys get kind of an idea of who this character is, which I think is pretty interesting, because even though Louis and Marion are very different, there's a lot of core things about them that are pretty much the same. And I think it
So it's
makes a
weird
lot
that
of
Callie
sense.
has kind of like gravitated towards both of them.
I know. Isn't that interesting? Don't you find that interesting? You find that a little bit suspicious?
That's suspicious. That's
Wait, I didn't
weird.
even like put that together.
I put that together a while ago, and I was like, I find that interesting that Callie was like, of the two
These people.
vampire royals, I'm just gonna gravitate towards both of them and
She
be
said,
like,
why choose?
choose. I mean, Marion's
Subtle
taken,
hints
but I
here,
guess
subtle
you could try
hints,
and,
yeah.
if you want to try to
No,
make that
I
a
didn't
purple,
mean
you
it
can
in
try.
that context. Oh my god.
I'm making a joke.
I know.
Calm down. But no, I do think that's an interesting thing. But if you wanted to talk about the interesting interaction that she had with Tobias over long distance chat.
Yes. So if you've seen previous streams, you know that Amelia is our resident phone that we use. She can mind link with anyone that she has a connection with, really. And if it's strong enough, and I think like less people involved, we'd have to ask her like the mechanics behind it, but she can kind of create a space where it's like an in-person mind-to-mind call. And so the party was getting ready to travel to Sarlona, where they are now, and she kind of offered up like, does anyone want to contact anyone before we head out? Just because sending mail would just take too long.
It would take a very long time. In this
Yeah,
one.
and so Callie was like, yeah, I would love to reach out to Tobias and just like check in and say hi and see how everything's going. And so she created a link between Callie and Tobias and kind of made like a room. Was it the workshop? Yeah, he was in the workshop.
Yeah, basically it was like a mental workshop, so to
right,
speak.
Yeah. In their minds.
Yeah.
So what Callie didn't know was going to happen, that was because it was in their minds, he can hear voices. In this,
and he can fully like speak.
Right, and
he wasn't signing, it was just his voice.
Yeah, because it was mind to mind, they could actually communicate.
So
and that was a big thing.
So he had never right. He had never heard her voice before. And she was not expecting that to happen. So when she walked in and started signing to him, he was like, "Oh, you don't have to do that," and started talking and was like, "I can understand you." He probably talks and can say most things, but anything new or different that he hadn't heard before the accident.
I think it's like the I think it's almost like he speaks, but sometimes it can sound a little like almost distant.
Yeah.
Right? But he's still speaking because he's trying to make other people potentially like comfortable.
Right. I could totally see him like working and just like cursing at himself, but like
he's
no
just
one's
like, shit.
Right. Yeah. So
it's like
anyway,
my finger. Damn it.
So she just like just was not prepared at all to be able to act like communicate with him in that way. And so it was just like a really, really beautiful like father-daughter moment of him being like, "I'm so proud of you and how far you've come and what you're doing with like your life and what you found." And she was telling him about like just like she finally feels accepted and wanted, and like just you're gonna cry again.
I am. Damn it.
And like how she's just like feels like she's found her place and where she needs to be right now, and that like she's thankful that he pushed her to do this. And because I think she was very comfortable, probably
with the
too
life
comfortable.
She was living, yeah.
Yeah, before he told her to go in a loving way. And so yeah. And so she has, I think, found more comfortability in this unknown and in this party as well, with the relationships she's made. One of her biggest things is that she's kind of crippled by being abandoned, and like that fear of it happening again. And so I think that's why she was okay with being so comfortable staying with him. So I think in the beginning she was very apprehensive and quiet and not very open, but as over the last 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was a
Excuse me.
very big deal that during that conversation, like he expressed that he was very proud of her and
Mm-hmm.
excited for what she had found and everything. But I think a big part of it was that he said that I'll always be here when you get
Right.
back. Like
Mm-hmm.
it'll be okay. I'm
Yeah.
still here.
Like if you wake up one day and don't want it, like I'm here. Like
It
you can come
it
back.
doesn't matter what decisions you make. I'm still your dad.
Right.
Like nothing is going to change that fact at all.
Right. Like you
Hmm.
tried. That's all I can ask, you know?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Did you have
Um
fun?
right.
Cool.
Cool.
Right. So I think she like has a hard time committing to relationships and like just friendships, like accepting, which I think is interesting why she's so trusting to Louis when like she not I don't know that they actually like they have a quote unquote friendship at this point yet.
I
But
would say it's the very, very beginning of
I
one.
think
right.
there's a connection there. I think we just
Right.
don't know yet
In
what
what way
kind
it could go. Right.
because we haven't had time to develop it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Tobias is the biggest exception that like I think she excuse me just like didn't have anywhere else to go, so she was like, all right, I guess I'll go with you. And then I think she's learning that like family, like I don't know, she's just kind of happened upon all of it.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Like Tobias took
Well,
her in,
I think that's
and then
also what makes her um so um I think so like she's starting to get more comfortable with this like adventurer role.
mhm,
Um because I think like you stated, like when she was a kid, she really wanted to have like the sort of confidence that Antony did, where it's like the man, he just went and like adventured and like
right.
he saw the world and like that would be so cool, but also like I don't know if I could ever just like go out and decide to do that, right? So I
Because even though
think
she doesn't want is like afraid of relationships and not just like romantic but also friendships,
uh-huh.
um,
Connections in
she
general.
also can't be alone. Like has a fear of being alone. So
Right.
like commitment is hard,
Would
and
you
she's
say
afraid of
that
that. But like
her
also,
biggest fear is ending up alone?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's necessarily like ending up again. It's not ending up alone without romantic love. It's ending up alone. Period.
Period. Yeah,
Like
just
familial, romantic, friendships, whatever.
right. Just
Just
relationally, period. Yeah.
right.
I mean, that's fair. And I think that
Which-
that's also always a really important question to answer
mhm.
for
Mhm.
characters is like
Mhm.
what is their number one fear, because everything that they decide is trying to prevent that from happening, right?
Mhm.
And so I think with Callie like not wanting to be alone, um, she is trying to make like Tobias proud of her,
Mhm.
but Tobias like already is naturally, but she's like, no, 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 like I have to do stuff to make it proud of me. And Tobias is
Right.
like, have you learned nothing? Like you
Mhm.
literally could exist, and like that's it, and I would
Mhm.
be so proud of you, you know, um,
Yeah.
which is basically what like made me cry so much during like that interaction is just the raw like you being my kid
Is
makes
enough.
me the most like fulfilled I could ever be, right?
I don't
Mhm.
know if it like matters or not for this discussion, but I felt like that was really important, especially because it's a situation of adoption and of late adoption, and
Mhm.
it
Mm-hmm.
still matters.
Mhm.
It's still that just as deep.
Mhm.
Yeah, especially because like it, you don't have to be. I think that D and D as a whole allows you to have these moments of um like what does it mean to have found family, right? And
Right.
like what gets to dictate how people love one another, connect with one another, what's important, what's not, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a lot of different avenues that Dungeons and Dragons allows you to take that, um, because it doesn't have to be the traditional quote unquote way that people determine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead, it's literally like you get a group of people together, they're
Mm-hmm.
all random, you toss them in a tavern, right? And then like basically you go from there of like how those connections develop, and that's why not one single Dungeons and Dragons campaign is remotely similar to any other one, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they do have this common thread of like people coming together.
Right.
So
From
I
all
don't
walks
know,
of life.
right? And I think that that's what's so incredibly like beautiful about the conversation between Tobias and Callie was like the like they it okay, I guess what I'm saying is like Tobias and Nihilus by themselves didn't just choose Callie. Callie also chose them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so them choosing each other and then essentially
Mm-hmm.
having this like that's why I think it literally was just like a random day where like somebody came in and they were like I literally could see Nihilus being like, "Oh, I'm Nihilus. This is my husband Tobias, and that's our daughter Callie." Right? And it was like casual, and then basically Callie was like, "Wait, did he just say that I was okay?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, you know." Because I also think that like everybody would have like assumed that that's what this unit was, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't think it was like y'all ever sat down at the dinner table. And Tobias was like, okay,
We're
I
adopting you.
think
Yeah.
it's important. We really would
Yeah.
like to adopt you,
Well,
right?
the papers.
Yeah. No.
Um,
For sure.
I think it was like one of those moments where like after that person left, and then like Callie was like, "You called me your daughter," and Nihilus is like, "Yeah, okay," and then that was it. Like that was the
Right.
whole
End of
conversation.
conversation.
Like everyone's good and understands that that's what it's been the whole time, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I really, really love the relationship between Callie and Tobias, and um, I also think that it's hilarious that the Callie is the only person in the group who has a healthy relationship with her father figures. Because
The only one without daddy issues.
everybody else be having daddy issues. So,
Some of them be having a double whammy of daddy issues and mommy issues, which is crazy.
Uh-huh.
that's facts. But listen, we'll talk about the fact that she had to kill her father. It's not a big deal.
We'll get to it.
We'll get to it. But yeah, like I really do think that Callie's story is very heartfelt. Like it feels very emotionally accessible. You know what I mean? And that's
I'm
one
really
of the things
interested
that I
to
really love
see
about it.
what becomes of her relationship with Louis, and because we also pointed it out during this session that yeah, I noticed it, like I pinged it, but I didn't think about it too hard that Callie was the one getting along best with Marion, and I think that that'll be instrumental for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Not that she has to play peacemaker, though I feel like she's gonna try
Mm-hmm.
to try and get those two in a good spot, because I don't, because honestly, it is unclear how Louis is right about now.
Yep.
But you've already known that Marion is not trusting, but she doesn't hate him.
Right.
That's
I
like
also
it.
love that he was trying to sneak out, and we were like, "So Louis, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh shit.
Oh
Hey
fuck.
guys.
Okay. He's like halfway in there. He's like fuck, and he's
Yeah.
back in.
Um, yeah. But I mean, do you have any other little tidbits about Callie?
I think the only other thing was like she's very much type B personality.
Oh, for
But I
sure.
think that kind of goes along with like her profession and her abilities. Like Callie is the definition of organized chaos.
We
Like
love that.
if you walk into her room or look at her desk, like she knows where everything is and everything's in its place. But you, the outsider, is like, what is all of this stuff?
They
all
pick
over
up a
your
piece of
desk?"
paper. It has like a squiggly line on
Yeah.
it, and they're like, "Why do you
And
have
she's like,
this?"
"Don't
And she
touch
goes,
that!
"Don't touch it! Put that down! Put that right back where you found it! I swear to God, you know, like, do not mess up my flow."
Love it.
Yeah.
We love her for
Yeah.
that, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
But other than that, I'm excited to see where the future, where it leads us.
Yeah,
And
it'd be great.
Very excited. Edge of my seat.
still very much new to all things, but
It's okay. You're doing a fantabulous job.
You really are. You picked it up a lot quicker than I did, so
Oh.
gosh dang it.
Yeah, this is my first ever campaign,
Mhm.
so I've been having a
She's
great
killing
time.
it. You fit
And I
like right
think-
in. We've
I
been having a
think-
blast.
Her, like, Callie's talk to Tobias about the party was also, like, my way of being able to tell you guys, like, how much I love all of you, and, like, just how this sisterhood that we've created of, like, just amazing friendships, and something I never thought that we would have or that I would get to experience. So it's just, like,
Don't
love you guys.
do this. Like, don't do
You're gonna make her
this.
cry again, dude.
I'm literally already tearing up. Don't do that.
Oh my god.
It's been an emotional season of life, okay?
Mhm.
Yeah, but I
I
mean,
do feel as though I win when my players do cry happy tears.
Okay. Happy tears. I can get behind.
I think
happy
just tears, period. You
No.
find joy and fulfillment in it.
Well, I feel like I created a good enough story where you get to react to it that way.
Mm.
Yeah, like an emotional connection
True.
to
If
it.
it was
True,
if it
for
was
sure.
boring and you didn't care, then I'm like, okay, cool.
That would suck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's
I'll go
fair.
ahead and find the nearest ledge.
Yeah, imagine if we had a boring DM. Couldn't be us, though.
Nope.
Doing my best. But yeah, like on what you said about that, it definitely felt layered to me. It felt like I was genuinely very proud of you as a player, and like how far you've come in just a short time, and so like I think that also came through.
I think it's also one of those things that every single time that we do a session, it's just like I get reminded that every single character in the story, but also every single person who is sitting quote unquote around our table needs to be there or the story does not work. Like
Right.
it just simply doesn't. And so I think we're all having like a really fun time with it and like developing these characters, and I'm really excited to kind of see how season 2 shakes out, or act 2, because for me, like, my brain is like, okay, we're gonna go to Sorlona, and then I really have no ideas at all anymore about the story and like where it's headed.
Not a clue.
Not a singular clue. Like before, okay, I was like, okay, we're going to Atlas for a wedding. Cool, great. All right, I'm with it. Yes. And then like war and everything, so I'm like, okay, we're probably gonna like have to do something with that and the politics of that, and we'll probably end up in Sorlona and stuff like that because we care about Marion, and now we also care about this like random ass dude named Louis. And then like now it's just like we're in Sarlona. The queen is like 100% dead. Our DM confirmed that. But
The eye roll.
the anxiety in my body, okay? Listen, but like that chapter quote unquote closed, right? Like the mid-season finale, right? But I'm like, are we staying in Sarlona?
Yeah, we
Like,
were kind of
are we
talking
going
about
back
this
to Atlas? Are we going back
earlier.
to Formosa? Like,
I talked with Lorraine about it. I have a couple things that are gonna move the story along.
She said there were some seeds planted that are coming back.
Jesus, I hate that. Okay, but great.
She said
I
it's
also
good
love it
for
at
us.
the same time.
She said it's good. She said it's
Okay, I just want my
Will you-
goddamn beach episode. I'm so sick and tired of the
I
mountains,
mentioned
bro.
the episode.
She
Okay.
did.
I said once you guys wrap up in Sarlona, you can have a vacation in Cover.
Ah, I want to go to Cover so bad. It looks beautiful.
See, you say that now.
No, it just looks pretty.
Okay.
I know shit's gonna go down. Like, no place is safe. However, it looks beautiful.
I get to
But
introduce a new
also,
character, and because if anyone watches this VOD, they get the spoilers.
That's true.
It's the one spoiler. You get to meet Prince Salem.
Ooh.
This
He
would
sounds
be the
hot.
man.
I'm
This is
kidding.
the man that
Everybody's hot in our
we don't
story.
have hot.
yeah.
Yeah, we don't have ugly characters.
Yeah,
exactly.
that would
But
be
this is the
even
man
more
that
gory.
Marion was betrothed to.
Oh, I forgot about him.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
I love every second of it.
You love drama?
I do
Oh
love
my
me some
god, I
drama.
love drama.
I
love
love
me
to
a
let the
situation.
DM cook.
I love
Yeah,
this.
but
Well, if things don't
so
work out with Louis, I suppose she can try and woo Prince Salem, but she might be done with princes at this point, so we don't know.
Amelia's
We
not.
will see.
No.
Amelia's like, princes are actually kind of the shit, not gonna lie.
She didn't have that opinion in the prequel or in the beginning of Act 1.
No, she actually fucking hated nobility. Also, like, there's a part of me that could not imagine how she would approach each one of these, like, sections of the story if she still fucking hated nobility.
Right?
But alas, she
Because
has
her
we are.
besties with
become
Anna,
romantically involved. She would not be besties with Anna. She would not give a flying fuck about Marion. Or Louis. But yeah, we've
Here we
changed,
are.
we've grown.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, do you have anything else?
I think that's it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Callie is also being thrust into all this politics and royalty and
Hell yeah, it's a blast and a half.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, if you stuck with us through this, we appreciate you for being here. We do want to give a shout out because it technically happened like maybe 30 minutes before we started our stream tonight. But thank you, Mage Rights, for the follow. We appreciate you. To anybody
Thanks,
who came and
Evan.
lurked or hung out with us. So shout out to Hooray It's Jamie and Rev. You know that we appreciate you. We've talked to you a lot about how much you've done for us, and we appreciate you. Now, if you missed this guy and, like, say you're on Twitch and you're like, holy crap, what am I going to do because this might get deleted really soon. No, it won't. Not on our YouTube, it won't. So if you go over to our YouTube that's down below this video, and click that link, it'll take you to our YouTube channel. Please make sure to subscribe to that so that you get notifications whenever we upload either a new stream that you might have missed or a lore talk, like tonight. We are now halfway through our PCs, so we've been having a lot of fun with the lore talks and you guys getting to be able to see a little bit of a glimpse into some of the table characters and what we have done to make them feel like people. And then also, just while you're down there clicking buttons, okay? If you could click the Instagram and the TikTok and make sure to give us a like and a follow over there. We greatly appreciate it because it gets our content out a little bit more. But if my math be mathin', this might be our official, like, affiliate stream. So we're super pumped and we thank you guys for helping us get to this point. And we look forward to continuing this story that we dearly, dearly love, and we hope that you come to love it just as much. So we appreciate y'all, and we will see you on Monday at 8 p.m. Central.
See you there.
Bye.
Bye.